At my stepdaughter's wedding. Shellod, he's nobody. Good thing I still remember his name. Then the groom's father saw me and whispered, "Oh my God, he's..." The word died in his throat like it hit a wall. For a second, the whole room felt too bright and too quiet at the same time. The DJ had themic up for a sound check, and it squealed thin and sharp like it was embarrassed for me. Somebody's fork tapped a glass. Somebody else cleared their throat. Kayla, my stepdaughter, stood there in her white dress, smiling like she just told a cute joke. She had that bridal glow hair pinned up just right, makeup perfect cheeks already a little flush from all the hugging and posing, and being the center of everything. She looked right at me as said it, too. Not over my shoulder, not to the side, straight at me. He's nobody. Good thing I still remember his name. I didn't flinch. Years of working fraud cases at a credit union taught me how to keep my face still while the inside of my chest rattled. But I felt it like someone reached in and twisted something that wasn't meant to be touched. Kayla turned immediately, as if I'd already done my job by standing there and taking it. "And this is my real dad," she announced, voice bright proud. Derek Pierce. He just got here. Derek was standing near the entrance, holding a little gift bag like any other late guest. Same dark suit as half the men in the room. Same shiny shoes. The only thing different was the way he wore it. Like the suit was there to applaud him, he leaned in for pictures like he'd been practicing in front of a mirror. When he hugged Kayla, he patted her back a little too long, then looked around, scanning faces, soaking in attention that wasn't even his yet. He didn't look like a villain. He looked like a guy you'd see on a Sunday flight home, making small talk in the boarding line. Airport cologne and confidence. I'd met his type 1,000 times. You don't smell danger in them. You smell aftershave. Denise, my wife, stood beside Kayla with her hands clasped tight in front of her the way she did when she wanted something to go smoothly. She gave me a look that said, "Please, not tonight. Not here." So, I did what I've always done. I swallowed it. I forced a small smile. I nodded like Kayla hadn't just cut my legs out in front of 80 people. I'd promised myself I wouldn't be the guy who made a scene at a wedding. I'd promised myself I'd keep my dignity even if nobody else handed it to me. But then Frank Mercer saw me. Frank was the groom's father. 62, broad shoulders, silver hair, combed back, dealership owner posture, the kind of man who still shakes hands like it matters. He'd been lying with a group near the bar holding a plastic flute of champagne like it was a prop. Then his eyes landed on me and his whole body tightened. His mouth opened. Oh my God, he's stopped. His face went pale in a way that didn't fit with the music and the flowers and the big welcome sign by the door. He stared at me like he just walked into the wrong room. Derek saw it, too. I watched Derek's smile falter for the first time all night. Frank's wife touched his arm. Frank, he blinked like he'd been slapped awake. His eyes flicked me, then Derek, then back to me. He took a step forward, then checked himself like he remembered where he was. A wedding, a room full of witnesses. And whatever name he was about to say, it wasn't meant for this moment. I stood there in my navy blazer, the one I'd kept pressed in a Manners garment bag, and tried not to let my hands shake. The blazer fit a little tight now. I'd bought it years ago back when Denise still looked at me like I belonged in the family photos instead of the edge of them. The venue. The veranda at Walnut Grove was exactly what you'd expect outside Springfield, Missouri. Fake wood beams, big windows with string lights draped across them. Hy-Vee trays on a back table. A Costco backup sitting in a box because the real cake made everyone nervous. The smell of coffee, hairspray, and warm chicken. Real American life, real Midwestern smiles. And me standing there like an extra in someone else's movie. Kayla's friends, mostly in their 20s, laughed. Not loud, not cruel, exactly, just easy. Like the joke was safe because the target was older, quiet, and already labeled. One oftenest's aunts gave me a tight look, sympathy, mixed with discomfort, like she didn't want to get involved. A couple of older guys at a table looked down at their drinks. The room moved on because that's what rooms do. I wanted to move in too. I wanted to focus on the good parts. Evan looked happy. Kayla looked happy. Denise was breathing. The night cowl'd still be peaceful if I just stayed small. But Frank Mercer kept staring like his brain was trying to solve a problem right in front of him. I pretended I didn't notice and walked toward my seat. The place cards were lined up near the entrance. Little white cards with gold script. My name was there. Sam Donnelly. No dad. No stepdad. Just my name like I was a born fitted out of politeness. At my table, a man about my age leaned over and murmured, "You all right?" I nodded. Double quotes fine. It was the kind of lie I'd perfected over decades. The kind that kept things from getting worse. The judge started playing a slow country song, something from the 9 South, the kind older guests could hum without thinking. Chairs scraped. The wedding coordinator halted by with a clipboard. Someone eckled out for more ice. I looked toward Nice. She was laughing at something Kayla said, but her laugh sounded tooey. Her shoulders were tight. She kept glancing my way like she was checking the temperature in the room. Derek drifted closer to Denise, putting himself in her space like he'd always belonged there. I saw him lean in, say something low. Denise's face pinched, then she smoothed it out. She nodded. It hit me slow and heavy. Derek didn't come back for Kayla. He came back because he needed something. That's how it always worked with men like him. They show up when there's something to collect. Frank Mercer moved across the room, weaving between tables with purpose. He didn't head for the bar. He didn't head for Theaton's floor. He headed toward the side hallway, where the restrooms were, where Ed's staff entrance was, where people went when they needed a quiet word. He stopped short of me, just close enough that nobody would think we were talking. "Sam," he said. I looked up. Mr. Mercer. His eyes flicked around quick and nervous. "Did you know he'd be here?" He meaning Derek. I kept my voice even. Frank swallowed. "Yeah, him." "I didn't," I said. "He just arrived like everyone else." Frank's jaw tightened. "I need a minute with you." Before I could answer, Denise came toward me fast, her smile pasted on. She grabbed my arm lightly like a wife should, like this was normal. "Sam," she said, still smiling, "can you come with me for a second?" Her fingers pressed a little too hard through my sleeve. Derek was right behind her, gift bag gone now, hands empty, eyes bright. "Hey, buddy," he said, and the word buddy landed wrong, too casual, too familiar, like he was string on a role he hadn't earned. Denise's smile wavered. "It's just a quick family thing." Frank Mercer stood there, frozen mid-step, watching the three of us like he could see the whole end off night in his head. Derek tilted his head toward the side hallway. "Won't tack along." And in that moment, standing under string lights and fake wood beams with a country song playing too softly in the background, I felt something colder than humiliation settle in my stomach, because I knew that hallway wasn't about family. It was about paper. And somehow, someway, they believed I'd sign. I followed Denise and Derek down the side hallway, because that's what I've always done. When things get uncomfortable, I move instead of arguing. The hallway smelled like cleaning spray and old carpet. A folding table leaned against the wall with extra programs stacked in crooked piles. Somewhere behind a door, a toilet flushed. Derek walked like he owned the place. Denise walked like she was trying not to trip. "Sam," she said, lowering her voice, "this isn't what it looks like." "That's usually when it's exactly what it looks like," I said. Derek chuckled. "Still got that sense of humor." "Huh, man. It's been a long time." I didn't answer. I washed dishes. Men tell you more with their hands than with their mouths. We stopped near the staff exit. The music from the room was muffled. Here, like the party was happening in another building. Denise reached into her purse and pulled it out a thin folder. "Cream cold. Neat. Too neat. We just need your help with something," she said. "It's nothing big." Derek nodded along. "Purely temporary. Just logistics. Wedding stuff." I took the folder and opened it. Power o' Fraternity Limited. They'd labeled it in bold letters, meant to calm people down. Beneath that language that was limited at all. Authority over accounts, authorization to open credit lines. A guarantee tied to something called a short-term bridge loan. There was a blank line for my signature and a notary block already filled in, except for the stamp. I looked up at Denise. "You brought this to a wedding." Her eyes darted away. "We didn't know when else we'd all be together." Derek smiled soft and patient. "Look, Sam, I know work isn't fun, but Kayla and Evan are trying to get started. Houses aren't cheap anymore. This just helps them qualify. By putting my name on it, I say just for a bit." Derek said, "You've always been good with money." That stung more than I expected because it was truant, because he was using it. I scanned the page again. Years of reading fine print kicked in automatically. My eye slid past the friendly headings and landed on the real teeth of it. Broad language, no sunset clause. Nothing stopping someone from moving fast and leaving me holding the bag. Dennis stepped closer. Please don't make this a thing. Not tonight. I thought of Kayla 12 crying in the passenger seat after a fender bender. Thought of the check I wrote for braces without saying a word. Thought of the box in my closet. Old shoebox taped shut, filled with receipts nobody ever asked to see. My chest felt tight. My hand hovered over the pen Derek slid toward me. I almost signed. Then I noticed the address. It was an old one. Derek's, the same address that popped up years ago on a fraud report tied to a Shell company that vanished overnight. He'd never been charged. Men like him rarely are, but paper remembered. I closed the folder. I need a minute, I said. Derek's smile stiffened. Sam, I sighed a minute. I stepped back, pulled out my phone, and dialed the after-hours fraud line at the credit union. It rang once, twice. Went to voicemail. Bad reception or bad timing. Denise's voice cracked. Why are you doing this? Because this isn't help, I said. It's pressure. A knock echoed down the hallway. A Van Westerfer poked her head out. Mr. Donnelly, Mr. Mercer asked for you. They're about to start the father sondance. I looked past her down the hall toward the ballroom lights. Frank Mercer was pulling the emergency brake. And whatever happened next was about to be public. Frank Mercer didn't wait for me to answer. He stepped into the hallway himself. Tall frame filling the narrow space, jaw set like he'd already made a decision, and just needed to see if I was going to fight him on it. Sam, he said quietly. I didn't know you'd be here tonight. Denise stiffened. Derek smiled thin to a line. I nodded once, neither did I. Frank's eyes flicked to the folder in my hand, then to Derek. Hadn't bothered lowering his voice. That's interesting because if Derek Pierce is involved in anything financial around Myson, this wedding stops right now. Derek let out a laugh that was just a beat too late. Whoa, Frank, easy. This is family stuff. Frank turned on him. You don't get to say that word like it means something. The hallway felt smaller. The music from the ballroom drifted in slow sentimental wrong for the moment. Frank looked back at me. You still working fraud? Semi-retired, I said. I consult. Frank nodded like that answered a question he'd been carrying for years. Figures. Denise looked between us, confused now. What is going on? Frank took a breath. Years ago, Sam helped keep my dealership from going under. Quietly didn't ask for a thing. If he hadn't caught what he caught, I'd have been answering questions I didn't have good answers for. Derek scoffed. Come in. That was ages ago. Different situation. Frank's eyes went cold. Same pattern. Derek's jaw tightened. He glanced at Denise. This is getting blown way out of proportion. I finally spoke up. Then you won't mind explaining why you need my signature? Silence. Frank leaned closer to Derek. What did you ask him to sign? Derek hesitated. Just a flicker. Enough. A temporary authorization, he said. For the kids. Frank turned to me. May I? I handed him folder. He read fast, faster than most people his age. He didn't miss the notary block or the broad language. His face darkened. You brought this here, he said. Denise's voice was small. It was just to help them get approved. Frank looked at her gently. Approved for what? She opened her mouth, closed it. Frank exhaled through his nose. My son hasn't applied for anything. That landed hard. Derek took a step back. Frank, listen. No, Frank said. You listen. I've been getting calls all week. Investment opportunities, short-term financing. I thought it was noise. Now I see it's you. The truth slid into place in my head, clean and sharp. Derek wasn't here for Kayla. He wasn't even here for me. He was here because he thought my name, quiet, boring, trustworthy, could unlock doors. Frank looked at me again. You all right? I nodded though my heart was pounding. He almost signed. Denise gasped. Sam, I didn't, I said. But I almost did. Frank straightened. That's enough for me. He turned toward the ballroom. We're handling this now. Derek grabbed his arm. You can't do this here. Frank shook him off. Watch me. As Frank walked away, Denise sank against the wall like her legs had finally given out. I didn't know, she whispered. I looked at her. Yauk knew enough to bring papers. She didn't answer. Derek stared at me, eyes hard. No. You think you won something? I met this gaze. I think you misjudged who you were standing next to. The music swelled as Frank reached for the microphone, and the room began to change. The music cut out mid-chorus. That alone was enough to make heads turn. Frank Mercer stood at the edge of the dance floor, one hand wrapped around the microphone like he'd done this before, which I realized had probably had. Dealership openings, charity dinners, Rotary banquets. The man knew how to speak when people were holding forks. Sorry folks, he said, voice calm, steady. Just need a quick word before we get started again. The room quieted. Chairs stopped scraping. A couple of phones dipped lower, curiosity rippling distraction. I was still in the hallway close enough to hear every word, far enough to feel like I was watching my life through glass. Denisa looked at me, eyes wet. Please, she whispered. Don't let this get ugly. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My chest felt packed tight like someone had filled it with sawdust. Frank went on. Tonight's about family, and sometimes family means making sure people don't get hurt financially, legally, or otherwise. I saw Derek stiffen. He took half a step toward the ballroom, then stopped. Too many eyes now, Frank continued. There's a man here tonight who doesn't like attention. A man who spent most of his life doing things quietly and correctly. A few heads turned. I felt it before I saw it. The slow pivot of attention. Frank lifted his chin. Sam Donnelly. The room shifted. I stepped forward without thinking. My legs moved before my brain caught up. I stopped just inside the ballroom under the warm wash of lights, feeling suddenly very old and very visible. Frank looked at him. Sam, would you mind standing with me for a moment? Every instinct I had told him to stay small, sit down, don't make waves. But something else older, steadier pushed me forward. I stood beside him. Frank faced the room again. Years ago, Sam helped uncover a financing scheme that would have cost a lot of families in this town a lot of money. He didn't do it for credit. Headed it because it was right. A murmur rippled through the guests, not loud, curious. Frank glanced sideways at me. And tonight, he was asked to sign paperwork here at this wedding that could have put him on the hook for things he didn't agree to. Denise let out a soft sound behind me. Kayla stirred, mouth slightly open, color draining from her face. Frank held up the folder. This doesn't belong at a celebration. The room went very still. Derek stepped forward, hands raised. This is being misunderstood. It was a private family matter. Frank turned. Then why was there a notary block already filled out? That did it, a fugas. Someone whispered. Oh no. Kayla's eyes snapped to Derek. Dad. Derek smiled strained. Honey, it's not. Frank cut him off. I've already called my bank's compliance officer and venue security just to be safe. Two men in dark jackets sappered near the entrance, polite but mistakable. Derek's shoulder slumped. The confidence drained out of him like air from a tire. Kayla took a step back, hand flying to her mouth. She looked at me, then really looked at me for the first time all night. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. Venue security didn't grab Derek. They didn't raise their voices or touch his arms. They just stood close enough they'd very on understood what was happening. Sir. One of them said quietly, we need to step outside for a moment. Derek looked around, searching for an ally. Denise wouldn't meet his eyes. Kayla stood frozen, both hands clenched in front of her dress like she was holding hers together by force. This is ridiculous, Derek said, trying for a law that didn't come. I flew all this way for my daughter's wedding. Frank Mercer didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. You're not being accused of anything, he said. Not yet, but you're in it signing anything here. And you're in it pressuring anyone in my son's family. Derek turned to me. For the first time, the charm was gone completely. You could have handled this privately, he said. I met his eyes. It read, that was the truth. And the truth carried more weight than anything else I could have said. Derek hesitated, then uttered one sharp and angry like he was. Making a mental note, he followed security toward the exit. As he paused at Kyla, he reached out like he might at her shoulder, then thought better of it. The doors closed behind him. No applause, no cheering, just a thick, stunned silence. Frank set the microphone down carefully, like it was something fragile. Thank you for your patience, he said to the room. Let's all take a breath. The DJ hovered, unsure. Frank gave him a small nod. Music's fine. The country song came back and softer than before. People started moving again slowly, carefully, like they were walking on ice. Kayla turned toward me. I'd imagined this moment 100 times in my head over the years. Not like this, but still I'd imagined her finally seeing me, acknowledging me. Her face crumpled. "I didn't know," she said, voice barely holding. "I swear I didn't know." I believed that she hadn't known everything. I also knew she'd known enough. "You knew I wasn't nobody," I said gently. "You just decided it was a seer to say it out loud." She flinched like I'd slapped her. Tears spilled fast, ruining the careful makeup. One of her bridesmaids rushed over, whispering, pulling her aside. Denise stood there looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. "I thought I was helping," she said. I nodded. "I know, and I meant it." "That was the hardest part." Frank approached me again, lowering his voice. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said. "I will be." He hesitated. "I'm sorry this happened in front of everyone." I glanced around the room at guests pretending not to stare at half-eaten plates at the wedding cake no one wanted to touch now. It was always going to happen in front of Simeon. I said tonight just happened to have witnesses. Frank gave a grim smile. "If you ever need anything I know." I said thank you. I didn't stay much longer. There was nothing left for me there. I slipped out quietly the way I always had. Only this time, it didn't feel like disappearing. Outside, the night air was cool and clean. I sat in my truck for a minute with the engine off, hands on the steering wheel, letting my heart beat slow. Then I drove. I stopped at a little 24-hour diner off the highway. Vinyl booths, burnt coffee. A waitress called me Han without irony. He ordered eggs I didn't really want, and drank coffee I probably shouldn't have. For the first time all night, my hands were steady. The diner was quiet in that late-night way. Two other tables occupied a couple of truckers with ball caps pulled low. A woman in scrubs stirring her coffee like she was trying to stay awake for the ride home. The neon open sign buzzed in the window. Fear smelled like bacon grease and floor cleaner. I slid into a booth near the back, my blazer still on tie loosen. My phone sat on the table beside the sugar packet holder like it belonged there. The waitress, maybe in her 50s, looked at me for half a second and softened. She'd seen men walk in with that same hollow look. "Coffee?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am," I said. She poured it without rushing like she wasn't trying to get rid of me. "You coming from an event, a wedding?" I said. She nodded. "Those will do it to you." I almost laughed. Instead, I stared into the cup. The coffee was too hot, then suddenly not hot enough. That's how the whole night felt. My eggs served. I took 2 bites, tasted nothing. I kept thinking about Kayla's face when the room turned on her real dad, how fast pride became panic. How quickly a person can realize they built their whole identity on the wrong story. I didn't feel triumph, not the way people imagine revenge feels. There wasn't fireworks in my chest, there wasn't some big gotcha moment where I felt taller. What I felt was tired, deep bone level tired. The kind you get after holding your breath for years. I'd spent a long time being careful. Careful not to push too hard, careful not to complain. Careful not to look like the stereotype, the stepdad who wants credit, the older husband who can't handle his wife's adult daughter. I was careful because I loved Denise. Because I wanted peace, because I thought if I just stayed steady, the family would settle around me like a board finally nail it down. But families don't settle around you just because you're sturdy. Sometimes they lean on you because you're sturdy. Sometimes they lean until something cracks. My phone buzzed. NISO. I stared at her name. My thumb hovered over the screen. I let it ring twice, then answered, "Hello." Her voice came out small raw. "Where are you?" "At a dinner," I said, off the highway. Silence in her end. "Then are you okay?" Exhaled slowly. "I'm breathing." She made a sound. Half laugh, half sob. "Sam, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know it was like that." "I believe you," I said, "and I meant it, but you knew it was amazing. You knew enough to bring papers." "I was scared," she whispered. "Kayla said Derek had a plan. She said Evan's dad had connections, and that this would all work out, that it was just a bridge loan just for a few months. She said, you'd understand because you're really good at this." I stared at the dinner napkin in front of me, traced the edge of it with my finger. "Being good at it is why I didn't sign." Her breathing chitched. "I feel sick." "Yeah," I said quietly, so do I. More silence. I could hear faint noise behind her voices. Maybe the wedding still stumbling forward. The DJ trying to patch joy back onto the night. Then Denise said, "Kayla keeps asking for you." I didn't answer right away. I thought of that moment earlier. Kayla's voice, bright cutting fat laugh when she said I was nobody. I thought of the way she'd done it with an audience like she needed the room to agree. Finally, I said, "Tell her I'm safe." Denise whispered, "Sam, are you coming home tonight?" I looked out the window at the dark highway, the occasional headlight sliding by. I pictured my house, quiet, familiar. The chair I always sat in, the closet where my shoes were lined up by habit. "I'll come home," I said. "Just not right this minute." "Okay," she said like she was trying to be brave. "Okay." Before she hung up, she added, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I let you stand there alone." Fate's sentence hit me harder than the insult at the wedding because it was the truth. Not just tonight, for a long time. "I wasn't alone," I said. "I just look like it." After we hung up, I sat there with me hands around the coffee cup. My fingers finally felt warm again. I thought about Frank Mercer of all people being the one to step in. A man who didn't owe me anything, who barely knew me in a social sense, but recognized a danger because he'd seen it before, recognized a pattern, recognized that kind of paperwork that ruins lives. And he thought about my own pattern. The quiet man, the steady man, the man who keeps receipts, keeps records, keeps his mouth shut because he thinks that's what adults do. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. What I knew for sure was this dignity isn't something other people hand you. It's something you hold on to even when your hands are shaking. I paid my check and left a tip bigger than I normally would. Not because I was trying to bike inness, just because I felt grateful for the simple human act of being treated like I mattered for 5 minutes. On the drive home, the radio played an old song I hadn't heard in years, something from the late 70s South, a voice rasping about hard times and still getting up in the morning. I kept it low. I let the road do what it always does, give you space to think. When it pulled into my driveway, the house was dark except for the porch light. Dennis always left it on when she wanted me to come back safe. I sat in the truck for a moment with the engine off, listening to the ticking of the cooling metal. I wasn't sure what the next day would bring. A fight, an apology, maybe both, maybe a long, slow rebuilding, the kin people don't post about online. But I knew one thing. They called me nobody. And nobody was the only one who read the fine print. If you've ever been made to feel invisible in your own home, if you've ever swallowed your pride just to keep the peace, please hear me. Peace, that depends on your silence, isn't peace at all. It's just quiet. Take care of yourself, protect your name, your money, and your dignity. And if this story hit close to home, share it with someone who might need the reminder. Subscribe if you want more true-to-life stories like this. Stories where quiet people fin a legit scene.